Good day, everyone. I am Venizel M. Rubino from Section K1, and I am going to report about the Chapter 10 Neurodevelopmental and Neurocognitive Disorders. Here in our topic outline, as you can see in the orange box, it indicates the neurodevelopmental and neurocognitive disorders along the continuum. And inside this topic, we are going to tackle about the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD and spectrum disorder or ASD with the color yellow box. According to Cassie, Tattenham, Leston, and Darston, 2005, one of the most fascinating discoveries in the last few decades is how much the human brain development is extraordinary in early life, with dramatic growth of its size and complexity in infancy and childhood. Also, from Park and Ruther Lawrence 2009 as well as Solel et al. 2003, as people grow older, gradual declines in the structure and functional integrity of the brain come, but adaptations in the ways of the brain processes information that allow most people to retain a high level of functioning into old age. Yet, there is tremendous variability across people in the development and aging of the brain and in related cognitive, emotional, and behavioral functioning. Some reasons is number one, parents of young children chart their child's progress in major milestones of development such as talking, walking, and reading. Number two, most eventually, children gain critical skills that allow them to function in everyday life. Number three, some children, however, continue to have major problems in basic academic skills such as reading, writing, and mathematics. Number four, others have more cognitive deficits that interfere with their ability to function in many domains in their life. Lastly, for others, the deficits are in their ability to regulate their emotions and behaviors to understand social interactions. Although such difficulties may stem in part of adverse environmental experiences, such as trauma or poverty, they often have their roots in atypical brain development. Brain dysfunction in childhood or older age can be understood only in the context of what is atypical or functional for individuals in those periods of their lives. So, when we are talking about professions, the developmental psychopathologists focus on functional and dysfunctional development in children, while the geropsychologists concerned with functional and dysfunctional changes in older age. Neurodevelopmental disorders usually arise first in childhood. This includes attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD, autism spectrum disorder or ASD, intellectual disability, and learning, communication, and motor disorders. While in neurocognitive disorders, these typically arise in older age and this includes various major and mild neurocognitive disorders and delirium. Pay attention, slow down, you're so hyper today. Most parents say this at least occasionally. A major focus of socialization is helping children to learn to pay attention, control their impulses, and organize their behaviors so that they can accomplish long-term goals. Some children have tremendous trouble in learning these skills, however, and may be diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD. Here is the DSM-5 criteria for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD. Letter A persistent pattern of inattention and or hyperactivity that interferes with functioning or development as characterized by 1. Inattention and 2. Hyperactivity or impulsivity. Letter B. Several inattentive or hyperactive impulsive symptoms were present prior to 12 years old. Letter C. Several inattentive or hyperactive impulsive symptoms are present in 2 or more settings. Letter D. There is clear evidence that the symptoms interfere with or reduce the quality of social, academic, and occupational functioning. And letter E. The symptoms do not occur exclusively during the course of schizophrenia, I think, or another psychotic disorder and are not better explained by another mental disorder. To specify based on current presentation, when we say combined presentation, it means if both criterion A.1 or what we call inattention and criterion A.2 or what we call hyperactivity, impulsivity are met for the past 6 months. Next is the predominantly inattentive presentation. If criterion A, inattention, and criterion A.2, hyperactivity, impulsivity, is not met for the past 6 months. While the predominantly hyperactive impulsive presentation is that if criterion A.2 or the hyperactivity impulsivity is met and criterion A.1 or inattention is not met for the past 6 months. The biological factors of attention deficit or hyperactivity disorder or what we call ADHD is that children with ADHD are neurologically immature, and that is, their brains are slower to develop than the brains of unaffected children, leaving them unable to maintain attention and control their behavior at an age-appropriate level. Children with ADHD often have a history of prenatal and birth complications like low birth weight, premature delivery, and difficult delivery leading to oxygen deprivation. Some investigators suspect that moderate to severe drinking or heavy use of nicotine or barbiturates by mothers during pregnancy can lead to the kinds of behavioral deficits seen in ADHD. Another one is that a smaller number of children with ADHD show improvement in their symptoms when synthetic food colorings are removed from their diet. Another one is that the links between diet and symptoms of ADHD are inconsistent. ADHD is strongly tied to genetic factors. The psychological and social factors of ADHD. Children with ADHD are more likely than children without psychological disorders to belong to families that experience frequent disruptions and in which the parents are prone to such aggressive and hostile behavior and substance abuse. Another one is that, however, these associations are likely due to genetic effects on impulsivity and cognitive problems, which lead to both parental behaviors and ADHD in children. Another one is that family interactions pattern, especially in early childhood, influence the course of severity in ADHD, including the development of conduct problems. Let me present to you some of the famous people with ADHD. The first picture is Justin Timberlake, a formerly member of the boy band NSYNC, and Justin says that his singing is a way to deal with his condition. Another one is Paris Hilton. She takes a medication called Adderall to treat it, and she was diagnosed with ADHD when she was 12. Autism spectrum disorder or ASD involves impairment in two fundamental behavior domains: the deficits in social interactions and communications, and restricted repetitive patterns of behavior, interests, and activities. Here is the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria for autism spectrum disorder. So first, persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts as manifested by the following currently or by history. Letter B, restricted repetitive patterns of behaviors, interests, and activities as manifested by at least two of the following. Letter C, symptoms must be present in early developmental period but may not become fully manifest until social demands exceed limited capacities or may be masked by learned strategies in later life. Letter D, symptoms caused by clinically significant impairment in social, occupational, and other important areas of current functioning. Letter E, these disturbances are not better explained by intellectual disability or global development delay. Intellectual disability and autism spectrum disorder frequently co-occur. To make comorbid diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder and intellectual disability, social communication or criterion A must be below that expected for general developmental level. Contributors to autism spectrum disorder. Over the years, a wide variety of theories of autism has been proposed. The psychiatrist who first defined or described autism, Leo Kanner, thought that autism was caused by a combination of biological factors and poor parenting, but then later described that the parents of children with autism as cold, distant, and uncaring. The child's symptoms were seen as a retreat inward to a secret world of fantasies in response to unavailable parents. However, research over the decades shown clearly that under-responsive parenting plays little or no role in the development of autism. Several social factors have been implicated in the development of autism spectrum disorder. Family and twin studies strongly suggest that genetics play a role in the development of the disorder. Also, children with autism spectrum disorder have a higher than average rate of other genetic disorders associated with cognitive impairment. No single gene seems to cause autism spectrum disorder. Rather, abnormalities in several genes have been associated with autism spectrum disorder. Here are the treatments of autism spectrum disorder. Number 1, a number of drugs have been shown to improve some of the symptoms of ASD, including overactivity, stereotyped behaviors like head banging and hand flapping, sleep disturbances, and tension. Number 2 is that operant conditioning strategies are used to reduce excessive behaviors such as repetitive or ritualistic behaviors, tantrums, and aggression and to elevate deficits or delays such as deficits in communication and in interactions with others. The typical antipsychotic medications are used to reduce obsessive and repetitive behaviors and to improve self-control. Another one is that naltrexone, a drug that blocks the receptors for opiates, has been shown to be useful in reducing hyperactivity in some children with ASD. Parents may be taught to implement the techniques consistently when their children are at home. Lastly, psychosocial therapies for autism spectrum disorder combine behavioral techniques and structured educational services. So, let me present to you again famous people with autism. Number 1 is Albert Einstein, famous of devising his theory of relativity, which revolutionized our understanding in space, time, gravity, and universe. Imagine Albert Einstein with autism, but he was so smart. He was so genius, I mean. Another one with autism is Bill Gates. Entrepreneur Bill Gates founded the world's largest software business, Microsoft, with Paul Allen and became one of the richest men in the world. I mean, wow. He has a disorder, but it wasn't a hindrance for him to become rich worldwide. Just wow. I hope you learned a lot with my report, and I guess that would be all. Thank you, and God bless.